Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.
Yes, it is still January, and this week we celebrated Blue Monday. I don't know if celebrate is exactly the word. Okay, we commiserated on Blue Monday. But luckily, I am here with Dr. Emily Macdonagh, who is going to give us little changes to our lives just to make things a little better. Now, your eyes are not deceiving you. Dr. Emily Macdonagh is actually Mrs. Peter Andre, but we don't worry about that because we don't even do maiden names on this show because we don't care. And apparently, he's at home today looking after the kids. And as I always say, isn't that the best place for a man? There you go.
He's on daddy daycare duties.
That's the best place for him. So, how are you feeling this Blue Monday?
I'm feeling okay, thank you. I mean, I think, January in general is a difficult month, isn't it? I think it really can be, especially after Christmas, the slump and the weather's dark and gloomy. So I think, part of it's a mindset, I think, about trying to just be as positive as we can. But it is tricky. It is a tricky time of year.
Now, you're a very busy woman. You have all these children, you have all these stepchildren. So you're having to deal with a lot of different people in your home who maybe are a little bit cross and grumpy and teenage. What little tips do you have us? Please tell us. How can we stop them being so grumpy?
Oh my gosh, I wish I had the answer to that. I think if I wrote a book on that, it would be a #1 bestseller for all of time, I think.
Yes.
You know what it is, I think with my kids, I'm a real stickler for routine. So they kind of know, they whinge about it a little bit, but they sort of know what's coming up. And I think it helps them to kind of keep the week predictable and they know what's coming. But I'm a big advocate as well for just talking. I have this real thing about meal times and how we all need to sit down around the table together and have a conversation, because I think it just keeps them, I guess it gives them practice on like just having that conversation about, oh, something happened today that wasn't the best, or, oh, this was great thing that happened today. And I hope, my hope is that it will kind of strengthen our relationship together, but also, as they're then growing up, feeling maybe a bit more able to open up about things, I think. But they do whinge about that as well sometimes. They say, oh, can we have the TV on at dinner? And I'll go, nope, no TV.
You say absolutely no, it's no screens at all.
Yeah, no screens. And that includes me, because I have to put my phone down as well, because obviously I guess I want them to know that I want to hear them. It's important what they have to say. Now, I can't promise that stops them from being grumpy, but I do think it makes them trust you, like builds trust and I guess love in your relation, builds love in that relationship, doesn't it? So they talk to you.
What about food? Now, it's very hard to get children to eat new things. And we're actually here today, people, to talk about mushrooms. There you go.
Yes.
We're here to talk about mushrooms. And how do you get your children to try new things? Because I know that my child, whenever he's little, wouldn't have touched a mushroom.
That's a really good question. So I actually feel really lucky. My kids are not too bad with veggies. They're quite happy to eat vegetables. But I think if you've got kids who really are struggling with the particular vegetables, like say with mushrooms, just chop them up really small and blend them into, you can even blend them into puree. And the classic one with mushrooms I find is spag bol. You can mix it up really tiny. And because it almost looks like, it can look a little bit like mince, and then when you cook it in the spaghetti bolognese, I really don't think kids will notice. I think you can disguise healthy foods within dishes for your kids. I think as well, it's just about persevering a little bit, because I honestly think, especially when you're like the weaning stages for a baby, they've got to try new things. I think it's around 10 times before they will actually like it. And I think obviously it's natural, isn't it? I fed Belle something the other day and she really looked as if, what on earth have you just given me? But I thought, no, so I'm going to give it to her again. I've got to make sure repeating it, because if they just have it a certain number of times, about 10 times, I think it is, they'll get to like it. So it's that perseverance, but it is hard, because as well, sometimes you want the easy life, don't you? You want them to just eat the dinner that you've put in front of them. But
nuggets and chips, yes.
But with something like mushrooms, for example, they're so full of nutrition. I think that people often don't realise. So they've got folate, the B vitamins, vitamin D, selenium. So if we can get them into our own bodies and also our kids' bodies, is a massive bonus.
What about your own diet? Now, you're an NHS doctor. And I'm not sure that everybody knows that about you, because they obviously see you on the red carpet with Peter and Princess and Junior, but they maybe don't realise that you're an NHS doctor. You're a working woman like we all are. Do you bring a packed lunch with you to work, or are you like always trying to grab dinner?
So I tend to, yeah, I always bring a lunch in. Obviously, I'm on maternity leave at the moment, so I have to
Yep.
really think back, like, oh my goodness, what did I do?
True.
So yeah, I did. I used to, more often than not, I would take in leftovers, whatever we'd had
That was
for
good.
dinner the night before,
Mm.
and just pop it in the microwave at work, or I'd bring in, I'd make a sandwich and or bits like that. I always get hungry at work. I think it's something to do with
I
your
get
brain
starving at
working.
work. Yes.
Mm, I'm
I
the
get
same.
really hungry at work. I
Yeah.
think it's funny because a lot of people just do see you on the red carpet and things like that, and they don't maybe realize that you just have an ordinary job like everybody
Yeah,
else.
I do,
I've
and
always,
I love it.
I've always wanted to ask you, whenever you're working as an NHS doctor, do people know who you are or not?
So sometimes, and you know what, people are absolutely lovely. What's happened a few times is that, I would be seeing somebody and they would never mention it. And it maybe would be, I'm might be seeing them for the last time or discharging them, and they'd
Yeah,
say, oh, congratulations on your pregnancy or something like that. And I just think
yes,
that's so
yeah,
sweet that they wouldn't, didn't want to draw attention to it. So I
yeah.
find people are so kind and respectful. And
They're just interested. You're like, oh, I think I know you.
yeah, and but people are always respectful that actually I'm there in a different
In a
capacity.
different
I'm there,
capacity.
yeah, and I always am really grateful for that actually.
Do you find life a whole juggle? I mean, do you find it a juggle? I'm often criticized because I'll always ask a woman, how do you juggle? And sometimes they'll say, oh, you wouldn't ask a man that, because I don't ask men that because men don't juggle, I find. So do you find life a juggle?
Yes, I do. I do. I think it's there's always new things thrown in the mix. I mean, the example, obviously, we've just had a baby, so then that throws your routine off again. But for me, I try and just be as organized as I can, which is not
Yes.
always organized, but trying to kind of stick to routine. I have things in my diary really religiously, and reminders pop up on my phone, PE kit today or whatever
Yes.
else it is.
Yes.
I do shopping on the same days each week so I can plan the meals out, those kind of things that, because if I don't do that, I feel the juggle just goes a bit out of control. Um,
Yes, the plates stop spinning, which can be hard
yeah,
at times.
yeah.
And of course, people are going to want to know, does Pete pull his weight in the house?
He does. He's fab. He's absolutely fab. I mean, obviously, he's really busy with his work, so he is out and about doing that. But he will work a long day and then come back and make dinner for us all. Or he's
He
good.
gets
He's
that
really
in.
good.
So what kind of dinners do you eat normally? Would you be a plain cook, or do you like sort of more fancy food?
I would say very much kind of classic home cooking
Yes.
meals.
Yes.
And I'm trying kind of branch away from what I cook all the time. Otherwise, I feel like I end up doing the same things.
Yeah,
But it's
of
usually
course.
things like spaghetti bolognese, jacket potatoes. And
We
now
all
I've been
cook.
doing all this reading all about mushrooms, getting mushrooms in the diet all the time because they're, just absolutely packed full of goodies.
Yes. And if we are planning on working out as well, they're good. Do you get time to work out with all your children and work and
I have
maternity
to
leave and
say
everything?
that's where I fall short, definitely. But I do try and keep active, and I think any kind of mums or dads out there will know what I mean. You're on your feet all day long, so I do get my steps up on my watch, and
Yeah,
I try and walk to school to pick up the kids, for example. I think getting outside is really important, even in the winter.
it
Um,
really is.
it
It
is,
really
and that's the other thing as well. I don't know, something I've learned recently is that mushrooms contain vitamin D, which is really, really important in the winter because obviously we're not getting vitamin D from the sunshine, especially if you're
yeah.
vegan or vegetarian. They're pretty much the only plant-based source of vitamin D. So
That's
really,
interesting because
yeah,
particularly here in Northern Ireland and Ireland, apparently we're all deficient in vitamin D
yeah.
because we don't get any sun at all.
Absolutely. So that's a really, really good excuse to try and get some mushrooms in your diet. So if you get the UV treated mushrooms, it should say on the packet, UV treated
And
or
that
that
will
they've
have the
got vitamin
vitamins
D. Yeah,
in
which
it.
is really important. Vitamin D is so important for so many different functions in our bodies.
And finally, do you have any plans for this year? Any exciting projects coming up?
Well, you know what? It's because obviously, well, I'm on maternity leave at the moment, and our little one is going to be one in a few months. So, kind of thinking about kind of going back to work and how that's going to look, and and my eldest daughter, starting secondary school in September.
Big change for
Yeah,
her.
so really big change. So I've kind of feel quite excited about this year actually, and I do think it's going to be the juggle's going to change again. I'm going to be different school run, different things
Yes,
going on, but it's a really big milestone for her. I
I can
remember my
imagine.
first day at secondary school. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And then with everything that comes with that, because you only sort of think, whenever you're raising kids, you only sort of think up until secondary school. But now you've got this whole leap, and it'll all be the friendship groups and and
Yeah,
then boys.
I know. I've got that to got that to come. I've got
I
that to
know.
come.
It's non-stop, but sure, you wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
No, I know. Honestly, I enjoy it so much.
It's great. Emily, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. And I'm going to try and sneak mushrooms into my son's diet. So, ladies, I want you all to be doing that as well. Thank you very much for your time, Mrs. Emily Andre, aka Dr. Emily Macdonagh.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much.
Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.